On this episode of A Soul's Quest podcast, Omar and I explore the quest of embracing change through the art of letting go. Join us as we embrace change, honor our resilience, and discover the freedom that comes with surrendering to the flow of life. Stay tuned.
All right, so what are we here for today?
We're talking about embracing change through letting go, the art of letting go.
The art of letting go. Okay.
This is a tough topic.
It is a very challenging topic.
I think so.
It's a very challenging topic.
I will say, though, that I don't think people have had much of a choice but to go through changes, especially the last couple of years with COVID and whatnot. But I will say that I witnessed a lot of resistance and a lot of uncomfortability.
Yeah.
And so I think this is an important topic because as we'll discuss later on in the podcast, there's a lot of benefits to embracing change and letting go.
Yeah. But, it's interesting because I always hear people talking about, COVID and everything that came along with that, and I get that the heart, it was a difficult time, but that's life, it's like that was a big event in our experience of life, because again, you have to look at time frames and some things were challenging. But that's life,
I agree, but I still think that it's challenging to go through. That was like a change. I mean, even for myself, it was like literally, I'd never had to work from home or had an opportunity because it was, I'm not going to lie, it was great.
No. Yes.
But it was a big change to sort of like navigate that process of, okay, I got to do everything that I was doing in the office here at my house.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now for me, I embraced it. It was amazing and I loved it. Unfortunately, there was a lot of, consequences from COVID and whatnot. But for me, the change was great and I embraced it. Like I said, it was great. But a lot of people had difficulty with that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I don't mean to minimize it. And I don't want to give the impression that I'm minimizing the impact that, that situation had.
But you are right. It is life.
But what I am emphasizing or kind of like realizing, and then I tell people all the time, it's like, and again, I don't mean to be a pessimist and I don't want to be a pessimist, but and I'm not a pessimist, but I'm a realist, and situations like that would happen because change in life are almost synonymous with one another, or are synonymous with one another, because that is the whole point of life. And we need to be able to focus on letting go to make sure that we have a better experiences of life. Because challenges are going to continue to happen in our day and age, in the future, and as time goes by. And it's all in our reaction and our perception of how we take it. But anyways.
Yeah, that's true. So as usual, I wanted to start with a quote.
Sure.
I don't know who this quote came from, but embracing change is an art form and letting go is the brush that brings the masterpiece to life. Surrendering to the flow of transformation unveils the extraordinary within us.
Wow, that's a beautiful quote.
Isn't it? I thought it was, because I don't think people see change as that. A lot of people are really, they just don't, they're very resistant to they're used to this sort of monotonous way of doing things. And sometimes we don't even realize it. And then all of a sudden something comes in and changes and it's like really uncomfortable for people.
I mean, and in our defense, in, just human defense, security is something that is very important to us. It grounds us on life because too much turmoil in life could actually become very, it incapacitates us, from making movements and making changes. So in our defense, in the defense of individuals that we're having a large time letting go, it's understanding that we always are looking for a constant that grounds us to life. But too much of that is when it becomes problematic, because we have to be able to be flexible, because that's how life is.
Yeah, because you're gonna get that curveball, like COVID, which was a big curveball. Like, you know what I mean, or anything for that matter. It could be losing your job, walking to your job, and you lose your job at the end of the day. What are you gonna do? That's
switching. This happens a lot in leadership roles. You have a leader that you probably had a great affinity with, and but then that person changes or leaves or whatever, and then you're able to adjust, and dealing with somebody else's style is completely different. So then, and it may make you unhappy, it may make you feel better, but that ability of changing and letting go of that holding on to something so tight, it's something that is a skill that needs to be developed. And we see it happening because our society is changing. Perceptions and traditions and things are constantly always challenged. We did the metamorphosis of the spirit a couple of weeks ago, right, in one of our previous episodes. And one of those things is the challenging of value systems. Challenging value system, challenging standards of perception and belief, or the way that we interpret identity, the way that we interpret our relationships to one another. All those things are in constant flux. So this kind of like attunes with that idea of like letting go and grounding yourself in the flexibility that is of life that you have to have in order to live. And
there's a lot of benefits that we're going to go into a little bit later about the idea of embracing change and letting go. So, but it's interesting because, Brene Brown is one of my favorite, like, I love her work and her documentaries and all the stuff that she puts out there. And she talks about vulnerability and courage. And she basically says, let go of who you think you're supposed to be and embrace who you are. And so it's not just change externally, but it's also the change that's internal.
Correct.
And sometimes we want to resist the changes that are opportunities for us, and we don't see them as opportunities. We see them as like, no, I can't, I don't know how to do this, or you don't have low self-confidence because you're being pushed in a different direction, and that's where the art of letting go comes into play. And so I think that she talks about that vulnerability and courage in that premise really well. So
no, it's interesting because I've been dealing with this particular thing on letting go of certain ideas, particularly about my spirituality, for instance, or for lack of a better term, that idea of my relationship with the divine, right? And because we go into situations with a certain expectation, with a certain outlook of how things should be and what things should look like, right? That's one of the things that we always do, and the idea of letting go is something that is very scary, right? Again, I'm going back to the metamorphosis of the spirit episode that we talked about, that idea of transforming and finding your true essence, right? In the midst of being conditioned, and I don't want people to have a negative connotation of that word, but we are conditioned culturally, and we are trained to be assimilated into a certain society, and that gives us standards. But when those standards don't align through our emotions with who we truly are or want to be, that's when the conflict always arises, right? And then to be able to step out on a limb, right, and to let go of societal pressures, societal expectations, even your expectations of where you should have been in life, is very challenging. From my personal experiences, statements, right? From my personal experiences, just letting go of what outcomes might actually look like, what the outcome will look like, right? And trusting that if I put the effort in, and that stuff is being done, then actually the end result is going to be what's going to happen, right? And this has been like an existential question, right? Because you hear it in every single religion and mythology that exists. From the Bhagavad Gita, the idea is like they let go of outcomes, right? Trust God. You hear all this motif over and over again regarding letting go of holding on to something that you feel that is so tight, and then going with the flow of life and allowing it to take you through the ebbs and the flows.
It just reminds me when you say that, it makes me feel like it's like we watched a nature documentary, which is our one of our pastime things that we like to do, and it showed. And I remember because David Attenborough was the one that was narrating it. He's our favorite, and I remember thinking, and it just hit me just now, but there's this river or this stream and there's a fish or something, some animal.
Oh, okay.
And it's trying to hold on to this piece of like a twig or something like that that's in the water, right? Holding on for like the way that David Attenborough talks about it is very like, oh my God, he's holding on for his life. And he's like, doesn't want to let go. And you know how he can be comical about these things, and then the stream takes it.
Yeah.
And he just, instead of spazzing out and freaking out, he just goes with the ebbs and flows of the stream and, bumps and stuff along the way was one of the comical aspects of what David Attenborough was talking about. But that is sort of just to bring it from a philosophical down to like a animal kingdom type of scenario.
And the cool thing is like, it's the experience of life, right? It's like, water follows the path of least resistance, right? Water lets go, and when it goes, right? But again, that idea of, well, whatever happens, where it goes, is something that is foreign to us because we have to be in control.
Yes.
And the moment that we are letting go of things, it's the moment in which our society tells us that we're powerless, that we are purposeless, that you're lost. So then the question is not so much to be reckless, but how do you mitigate the two? How do you let go and still functions within a society, but you still somewhat keep your own identity? See, these are things that are hard to answer because it has to be experienced, and you have to arrive at that, right? That's the interesting thing. That's the part that I find fascinating when it comes to this topic. Now, don't get me wrong. It's like, personally, I struggle letting go.
Yeah.
I always have.
I don't think anything that we're talking about on here is that we're trying to make it like cake. Nothing that we're talking about is easy to do, but
it's a strong. You have to be at a frame of mind in which you're willing. But that's courage. That's courage, right? Courage is
vulnerability and courage.
Right, vulnerability and courage is that it's knowing that something may not work, and that you may be destroyed. I mean, I'm being dramatic about using the word destroyed, but you may be destroyed in the process, but that you still have the courage to go through with your vision, with whatever it is that kind of like comes to your mind at the moment. And letting go of all those inhibitions and actually going with it.
And that's what Brene Brown says, because she's basically saying that it takes vulnerability and courage. It takes both to go through the process of embracing change and letting go of what we know and embracing what is unknown. Yeah. Which is powerful because it's hard to fathom. It's for people, it's a loss of a loved one. It's like I've been with this person for, 20 years, 30 years, 50 years. And then all of a sudden they're gone. And now you have to live this life. It's a change. It's different. And it's
an existential crisis. It's like my purpose up to a certain point was being a part of this person. Now that has stopped. Yeah, exactly. Then what?
Yeah, and now what's my existence?
Then what is my existence about?
My identity.
I might as well just be dead because my identity is no longer there.
Yeah, because it's wrapped in that.
And
so we for some people it's true, and for some people, when you embrace the unknown, you realize that you do have an identity, and that there is a life, even without that person or with whatever change it is. It doesn't have to be death, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. And I like that you brought this point up, right? Because again, a lot of the things that we talked about are things that we still are learning ourselves, right? Oh, yeah. So this is why it's like a soul's quest point. It's like we're learning as we share.
It's our quest,
and that's the thing, the beauty about looking at life as a quest, as painful as it may sound. Because sometimes I bitch and moan about things that are not going my way and all that stuff.
No,
not you.
No, you You don't do that, do you?
Whatever. So about things not going my way or things are not happening in them a lot of amount of time, so at those moments, it feels like everything is like, what's the point, right? But sometimes you just have to remind yourself to let go.
Mm-hmm.
You have to kind of like just be in the moment, as hard as that may sound, or as a, being in the now, being in a situation in which you are really allowing everything to kind of like be felt. That's the whole point of John Kabat-Zinn and mindfulness. You'd read anything on this stuff about Eckhart Tolle.
It's like being in the now,
being in the present,
yeah.
And just letting go of outcomes and future, because that's when it becomes problematic.
Yeah,
and that's when it afflicts us. It afflicts us a lot.
Definitely.
Particularly again, me. It afflicts me. When I'm constantly thinking about the future, when I'm constantly thinking about, oh my God, how is this going to work? Oh my God, I already made the preparations and I did it, but I'm stressing about it. And that anxiety, that moment of not being able to be like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's done.
Yeah,
it's done. Now
imagine how much more, how much easier our quest would be if we didn't have so many expectations about, or have expectations on outcomes, you know what I mean, or that this is the way it's supposed to go. If it doesn't go this way, we got a problem. And then of course is that part of the art of letting go, or embracing that part, right?
And again, it's like, it's the narrative that we tell ourselves, because we as a collective, we tell each other stories. And the story is that you should go to school, you should finish college. After college, you'll get a paying job, that you will stay there 20, 30 years, that you will find somebody and that you will love and you will marry. That's like the standard story that we tell, that we will always come out on top, that we will always succeed, that if you put the hard work in, you will always succeed. The reality is a little bit different.
It is.
Because in the reality is that you may have to adjust. You will experience setbacks. You will experience all those things. So to let go of those, of that idolized, or idealized, but also idolized perception of what life should always be like, it's something that it probably will serve us well, because it doesn't put that pressure of having to be perfect.
It's funny because I wrote this episode based on my current situation, because you talked about college and whatnot, and obviously I've gone through many years of school now. And I thought, okay, I have a terminal degree. This is it. I can't go anymore. I can't do anything else, right? And I mean, just in terms of going to school, being in classes and taking, I earned my degree already. But I had this mindset of, this is what I'm going to do. As soon as I get it, this is what's going to happen. This is what I'm going to be. This is what I'm going to this is what I'm going to do, period. Like, people would ask me, what are you going to do with your degree? I had an answer, straightforward. And all of a sudden, that's not my reality.
Correct.
And you have been an instrument, sometimes a little harshly, but you have been that instrument to push me to think of other ways to do something similar, but in a different capacity or environment, if you will. To like, how can I do what it is that I love, which is teaching. I got my doctorate because I wanted to be able to teach and impart and engage with people and learn from other people and have this dialogue and just like this back and forth, which I think is amazing. And how can I still get that without doing what it is that I really wanted to do? You know what I mean? Which is being in a classroom, like the ideal, that's what it is, and that's been hard for me to embrace that. I'm still having difficulties with that, full disclosure. Because what I wanted was this. So I'm having to practice the art of letting go and not being so controlling about what my outcome is going to be.
So let's talk about this, right? Because this is a good opportunity to talk about this, right? Because you have to go back at the essence, right? And this is the words that you use. I wanted to connect with people. I wanted to interchange ideas, right? I wanted to be able to people from learn from me and that I could learn from them. Right. I want to be able to kind of like put a lot of this stuff into practice so that other people could become better and experience life in a better way, or experience their work in a better way, experience particularly their work environment, because it has to do with leadership. Right. That is the essence of what you're doing. Right. The thing is, and the thing that I think a lot of us get too caught up in the frameworks of what structures have already been put in place. Right? That it takes courage to realize that maybe those structures don't work well for me, but the essence of what I want, right? My quest will be to find my vehicle to be able to still get that essence of what I want or what's important to me. Now, that depends on the individual. You know, some people may have resistance to being open to like trying something else, or getting an idea and going in a different direction and then be able to pursue that idea. But it's the essence of what you want that is important. The letting go part comes from expecting that the vehicle, right, would always be the same vehicle, or it's a vehicle that has already been in place. The vehicle changes because time changes, right? The way that the people were teaching 100 years ago is not the same way that people teach now. In fact, most of the people that you're learning from are not even in traditional classrooms. In fact, a lot of them are not even teachers in the traditional sense of the profession. You know? So it's all a matter of really, again, going back to this concept of identity in your particular situation, the essence of what you want, it's important to keep, because that's the core of who you are as an individual, right? That's the core of who you identified, you know, based on Brené Brown. You discovered what you wanted. You discovered your essence. You discovered your life's purpose, so to speak. Now is, okay, what is the vehicle that is going to allow me the flexibility to be able to express that? And it may not be the traditional vehicle,
right?
You know, so it's looking at life from those particular ways. But the beauty of it all, right, this is how things advance in life. It's never the same old tribe method that brings forth new ideas. It never is. It's somebody going out on a limb, trying something that is completely out there to bring in a new perspective, a new point of view, having the courage to be vulnerable, to be laughed at, to be ridiculed, to be looked at an idiot or something along those lines, and then be able, as time passes by, to realize, oh, but that person, those individuals, those heroes that we think about, it was the essence of what they wanted. That was the key. And that's something to always to keep in mind. I hope that
Yeah, that's a wrap. We're done. I'm kidding. That was actually you actually made me emotional.
You know, but this is good. It
is good. I think again, I chose this topic because I felt like, you know what, for me, it's important to do something that comes from my essence, right? And with A Soul's Quest, my biggest thing, especially since I've taken on a little bit of a more responsibilities and accountability for things that are happening here, and also trying to embrace this change and trying to ignite this creativity that I haven't been able to do in 13 years. I hate to say it, you know, I don't want to talk bad about my organization, but I've exhausted my time there, and that's okay.
And
you know what I mean?
And that goes back to the vehicles part. Sometimes the vehicles that you're currently in are not the vehicle that you have to just change that.
And I feel like if only I could have other people feel what I'm feeling, but people do feel it. But to hear this realization of it's not the essence that you're giving up, it's just the vehicle.
Correct.
Is like, it's powerful. It's a strong message, and it's hard to take because I've always, for years and years and years, all I wanted to do was be in a classroom, be in a traditional setting. And that's not necessarily my path right this minute. Right this minute, that's not it, right? And that's okay. So how do I get there? And that's the that resistance that I've been experiencing. I'm listening to you and I'm like, yeah, okay. But, and so I've been doing things on the backside, but we'll talk about that later. That's not me. But anyway, yeah.
And it's we always think that we live in a silo, like we live in isolation, and it's one of the reasons why I love this quote from Joseph Campbell, and one of the last lines is like, when you feel that you are alone, you shall be with all the world, right? Mm-hmm. And the idea behind that is the fact that it's like our lives, although they're individual experiences, they also have common threads, and they have commonalities amongst them, right? That idea of disillusion, of thinking something might be. And what I always go back to is, again, going back to your values, the essence of who you are. How do you determine that first and foremost? And how do you find that, which is the big part of the quest? And the second one is living from there and being able to adjust, Yeah. And those are the main themes that I like to kind of like focus on and go back to, because that's when I like what really moves things forward. Mm-hmm. And granted, I'm a person that struggled with all this. This is the reasons why we're doing this, because it allows me an opportunity to talk shit out and just see like, oh, okay, well, all right, if I'm going to be talking about this, I also have to live it. I have to feel it. I have to be able to like know that, be compassionate enough to understand what it's all about, right? And then being able to explore my own dimensions, my own mental capacity, my own feelings, my own emotions, to be able to articulate it and say, oh, you know what? Yes, it is tough, but there is light at the end of the tunnel if you are focused and if you redirect your energies to understanding a little bit more about yourself and a little bit more about the context of the world, and then be able to let go of certain things and then readjust, because that's what life is about.
Yeah. It's good. Mm-hmm. So obviously there's, the whole point of this show or this episode is that there are benefits to embracing change and letting go. And so some of this was my own pros and cons that I got from my diary, just some, and other ones were like, okay, this is some, this is research stuff here. Yeah. So the first thing is letting go and embracing change. It provides opportunities for personal growth and self-discovery. Yeah. So for me, that's exploring that creativity side of myself. You know what I mean? Because I have only myself as an example.
And then this is the part that is like, that idea of personal growth and self-discovery. There's two ways to approach that, right? One is willingly, right? And that could be actually a very fun idea and a very fun endeavor. The other part could be painful because it could be traumatic because we're focusing primarily on the things that are not working. So we have to also be cognizant of the way that we approach self-development and self-growth and the points of where we're coming from. Because again, letting go, right? When you're going on that journey of discovering more about yourself, it's also extremely beneficial.
Of course. Yeah, yes. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay.
So obviously it improves adaptability. It helps you get rid of those rigid expectations, which we talked about, control and wanting to like control our destination and our path. It increases our resilience because when something happens, you just bounce right back and you just adjust.
And on this, I always think of animals, right? Like we were watching the David Attenborough show, right? And I was thinking, and in particular, there were beavers, right? They built this dam, and they worked all day. They just, and they worked, and their dam was, damn, it was really cool, right? And they did their stuff. However, the river overflowed, and he wiped out their entire dam. What did that beaver do?
Started building it again. Resilience.
Because it's just things like that are going to happen. And you had to tell me that, that a beaver doesn't have the same capacity as some of us. It's hard to see it, right? But it's like you see this animal that is super focused and working hard to create this, wipes out, doesn't give up, just starts again.
And in some cases, I would say that sometimes we just don't have a choice. Like, you have a natural disaster and you lose everything. you got to start from scratch. I mean,
Yep.
when you lose everything,
Mm-hmm.
you just got to start from scratch.
Yep.
And in those moments, it feels hopeless. You
Yeah.
feel alone. You feel like, how am I going to do this? I have nothing. I don't have a vehicle. I don't have this, da, da, da. And you do it because you
Yeah.
have no choice.
And you take a step.
Mm-hmm.
You take a step. And then in that aspect, right, what you just said is, and this is hard to do because we live in such an amplified society that every failure or every setback feels like the ultimate doom,
Mm-hmm.
you know, like it does. Because everybody around you, when you look at social media, everybody's doing so well, right? But everything is like a doom,
Mm-hmm.
right? And everything is so amplified like that. And this is why also is important to minimize that intake of information that comes to you and be very guarded about the type of information that kind of like comes into you, because sometimes it's just not good for you. It amplifies the comparison trap.
Oh, yeah.
So you have to be careful about that, because you know, sometimes we just have setbacks. That's life, you know. But when you see it yourself and everybody's doing well and you feel like you're the only one that this stuff is happening to, or you're the worst, or you're missing this, or you're not good enough, it feels a lonely, lonely place,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So we have to safeguard that. We have to be resilient enough to be able to say, no,
Mm-hmm.
you know what? I'm going to pick up
Yeah.
and do the best that I can.
Yeah.
Then, you know, forget everybody else in
else.
terms
Yeah.
of constantly thinking about that.
Right. This ain't a competition.
No, this is not a competition.
Yeah. It expands opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
I think that when we closed off and we're not embracing change and letting go, then what happens is that you're not, you know, opportunities sort of fly right by you. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Also improves your problem solving skills. It enhances your well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And personal freedom, which was important to me because it enhances that ability to be creative.
Correct.
And discover things about yourself.
You know,
So,
and what I want to say on this, right, because I love the fact that you use improved problem solving skills, right? Evolution happens because we learn, and you could look at our history as a species, but you could also look at our history as individuals, right? Things happen, positive or negative outcome. We learn from those things. And as time progresses, those ideas stay in our minds, and we develop those problem-solving skills. This is how we got here as a species, through trial and error, and improving on things that happened and things that didn't work and things that could have gone differently. How do we make this better next time? These are skills that we're learning even as we go through that trajectory. And if we hold on too much to that failure, or if we hold on too much to that success, we fail to actually develop and improve our evolution as individuals and as a collective, you know. And those are things that we need to, because again, it's not just about the emotional component of it all, right? This is what a soul is. The soul is the sum of your cognitive skills and your emotional capacity, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the combination of those two things, it's what really helps us evolve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can't have one without the other, right? Because too much of one, it's dangerous,
Mm-hmm.
right? You have to be able to have those two.
Mm-hmm.
And this is kind of like what you were alluding to this. So I'm glad that you put there problem-solving skills.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So we talked about embracing change, the art of letting go,
Mm-hmm.
and we have 6 strategies, practical strategies that individuals can use to help them in or through the process of embracing change and letting go.
Okay.
I got to listen to this myself.
Oh, God. Okay.
So the first one is to practice mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
Cultivate present moment awareness to observe your thoughts, emotions, and attachments without judgment. Mindfulness helps you detach from clinging to the past or worrying about the future, allowing you to embrace the changes unfolding in the present.
Okay. Number 2, release control. Understand that not everything is within your control. Letting go involves accepting that change is a natural part of life and surrendering the need to control every outcome. Trust the process and have faith in your ability to adapt and thrive.
That's good. 3, embrace self-reflection. Take time to reflect on your fears, attachments, and resistance to change. By gaining insight into your patterns and beliefs, you can consciously choose to let go of what no longer serves you and open yourself up to new possibilities.
Good. Number 4, seek support. Surrounding yourself with a supportive network of friends, family, or community that understands and encourages personal growth and change. Share your journey with others, seek guidance when needed, and lean on their support during challenging times.
This is a good one. Focus on growth mindset. Adopt a growth mindset that views change as an opportunity for learning and personal development. Embrace challenges as stepping stones towards growth, and see setbacks as valuable lessons that propel you forward. I love that.
Yeah, and the number 6, the last one, take small steps.
Important.
Yeah, very important. Embracing change doesn't always require massive leaps. Start by taking small steps outside your comfort zone. Break the change into manageable tasks and goals, and celebrate each milestone achieved. Gradually, you'll build confidence and momentum to embrace more significant change.
Yeah, I think these are good strategies.
Yeah, a little bit at a time.
That's right.
How do you eat an elephant?
A little bit at a time.
A bite at a time.
Oh, okay. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Comment below with your thoughts and additional ideas, and remember to stay connected by sharing and subscribing.